So I suggest we make a gentle start. So first of all, welcome everybody to our latest ASME Bitesize session. And the title of this one is Transforming Medical Education to Suit 21st Century Healthcare Needs. So my name's Karen Mattick. I'm Professor of Medical Education at the University of Exeter. And importantly, this evening, I'm Director of Awards for ASME. And I'm delighted to be here and wonderful to see so many people joining us. We're up to above 60 now, which is great. And on the registration list, we've got people joining us from Colorado to Sydney, from Vancouver to Taiwan. So that's fantastic, and well done for negotiating those time differences. So the session will last approximately 45 minutes. We won't cut it off. If the conversation's going strong, we may go up to an hour, but between 45 minutes to an hour. If you wish to ask a question, please first of all use the chat field. You can see the chat there's a chat button at the bottom of your screen. And if we don't manage to get through all the questions today, don't worry, because we'll be collating those questions and Bogdan and team will be providing some answers, and we'll be uploading all of that information with the recording on the ASME website. It's possible that during the session, Bogdan will invite others to contribute to the conversation as a panelist, but we would ask your permission before doing that. So, you know, don't worry, we're not going to make you a panelist without consultation. Just so you know, I think you do, but the webinar is being recorded. So obviously, if you don't want your face to be seen, you can turn the video off. And so if you had any technical problems during the session, please do let the ASME team know, and they'll try to help you. So you can email the events@asme.org.uk email address, and they will endeavour to help. So it gives me really great pleasure this evening to introduce Bogdan Chiva Giurca, not only because he's today's speaker, but for two other very special reasons. Firstly, Bogdan is a graduate of my own medical school, University of Exeter Medical School. Not my own, I don't own the whole thing, but the same one. But secondly, with my ASME Director of Awards hat, Bogdan was awarded the New Leaders Award in 2018 from ASME for his work on the NHS England National Social Prescribing Student Champion Scheme. And he presented that work at the 2018 ASME Annual Scholarship Meeting in Gateshead. So Bogdan's the founder and chair of the NHS Social Prescribing Champion Scheme, which now consists of more than 5,000 UK junior doctors and medical students. And over a 3-year period, the scheme has delivered over 400 teaching sessions in all the UK medical schools, which is pretty amazing. So Bogdan's work has influenced national healthcare policy. It's driven key changes within medical school curricula. It's contributed to several peer-reviewed publications, policy documents, including the NHS long-term plan, personalised care model, GP partnership review, as well as authoring 3 books on medical education. So currently, Bogdan's a foundation doctor in London, collaborator for the Harvard Global Health Institution. So for all these reasons and more, I think Bogdan's ideally placed, with the help of the co-speakers that he's carefully selected and will introduce to you through the session, to engage with the important topic on the agenda for this evening. So the questions we're thinking about is there a need for medical education to be transformed? And if so, how should medical education transform itself to suit 21st century healthcare needs? So I'm delighted to hand over to you, Bogdan.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you for such a humbling introduction as well. I was just about to say that I'm just a medical student until I forgot that actually I'm just a junior doctor at the moment. And so it's really funny how those transitions just chase you throughout the year. But I do consider myself a student, and I think I'll hopefully consider myself a student for the rest of my life, and hopefully all of us will too. But it's such a great pleasure to be surrounded by inspiring mentors today. and I've had the pleasure of working with all of you in the past, with some of you in the attendees as well, but also the mentors that we have today as panelists. So Karen, I've met early on during medical school, and she's been such a wonderful mentor for several of our projects at Exeter as well. Bev is truly been like a mother of our NHS Social Prescribing Champion Scheme, which I'll introduce later to you as well. And Veronica, without a doubt, one of my biggest inspirations for community projects and for the students that she's inspired throughout. So I would like to thank them all for their time, and also thank you for your time, for devoting this evening or morning, depending on which time zone you're in at the moment. But thank you for joining us today. I am right at the end of my 3 nights in a row. I've stacked up on coffee, so my brain should really work, but do bear with me if I do say something silly at different times as well. So let's start from the beginning as well. Does medical education even need to be transformed at all? And I'm gonna just nicely bypass COVID, and I'm gonna just mention the scarcity of public health teaching in medical school, but I'm not gonna touch too much on that. I'm just gonna nicely avoid the topic for the moment, just because I know a lot of you have had too much of COVID lately. And so why don't we kind of move on from that perspective? But there are several health system emerging challenges. I guess one of them would be technological innovation and the need to use some technology within our medical education, such as simulation and all those virtual reality, and especially now with Zoom, we have to up our game a bit. We have the epidemiological and demographic transitions. And we also have, I guess, the professional differentiation, which has become a big challenge, or as you call it, tribalism, the us versus them that we often deal with in medicine. We have new population demands, and I think that's quite important. New population demands that are requiring more inter and multidisciplinary collaboration than ever. Now, the whole topic could be discussed at length for weeks and weeks, but we'll only going to focus on a few aspects. And I'm going to recommend some further reading. For those of you who are interested in this, there is a brilliant commission on education of healthcare professionals from The Lancet in 2010. And it's a brilliant paper. It's quite lengthy, but it really dissects medical education and some of the challenges in there. So I do recommend that paper in there. There's obviously going to be a natural lag, I guess, between medical education and clinical practice. And that's fine, that's normal. But I want to dig a bit deeper. And I want to talk a bit about beliefs, values, and perceptions, which are rooted in the behaviors that we set over time, over a long period of time. And so what's the problem? So the problem from my perspective is the demographics that we are facing in the 21st century. We are living longer than ever, and that's something we should definitely celebrate. Technology allows us to enjoy good health. However, it does also mean that we are facing an ever-increasing population. And so the easiest way to explain this is with a XY graph and axis. So if you imagine the population going up and then the number of doctors remain the same, by 2050, the population will double in size. However, the number of healthcare professionals and doctors will more or less remain the same. Now, yes, there's been an increase in doctors by 25%, but that still doesn't deal with the whole problem in there. And we can't expect to have enough doctors in the future to deal with all the problems in there. We live in a century, essentially, where telling patients what to do not only has become inappropriate because of the level of information, but will also become impossible given the numbers. And with all the information available, we shouldn't be upset when patients have access to so much information, but rather harness the opportunity to enable and empower patients to become active partners in their health, if possible, of course. I guess what I'm trying to say is that before we reach disease, we need to work in collaboration with patients to co-design and co-produce mechanisms of staying healthy that will prevent disease from occurring in the first place. I'm hoping patients can meet us halfway, again, when possible. Can we do that? Are we doing that? Well, here's the big problem. We still teach using algorithms. If high blood pressure, then follow NICE guidelines and give antihypertensive. If diabetes, then follow protocols. We are essentially taught to react to disease. If X, then Y. But here's the trick. Life is not really an algorithm, or if it is, or if it was, we're missing some serious data sets in there, If lonely, then what? NHS is a bit of a big bottle with holes in it, and I like describing this to when I teach some of my students. So, but essentially, if you imagine a big bottle, and the NHS is the big bottle with water inside it, what we're good at is when the bottle gets holes inside it and it starts leaking, we're really good at getting a plaster, sticking a plaster on the hole in the bottle, and then what happens is a while after, there's another hole that starts dripping from there as well. So we're really good at patching things up. We're not good at looking at long-term change. Yes, the acute picture is important. However, we really need to look at the deeper values behind. But is this a UK-based problem? Well, I'm glad we have international attendees from all over the world, because this is a worldwide problem. I've seen this during my time in Boston at Harvard. I've seen white-coated doctors telling patients what to do. I've seen this in Canada, Australia, Romania, and several other places. We still tell our patients what to do. And we get really defensive when we talk about lifestyle medicine and about exercise. And a lot of our colleagues will say, well, I always tell patients to exercise. Well, that's the problem right there. We tell people what to do, but we do not really understand what means to them, what matters to them, and how to get there. So I guess the question really is, how do we move away from a system just focused on treating illness towards one that is based on promoting well-being and preventing ill health, I guess? We need to consider wider determinants of health, health behaviors and lifestyle, places in the communities that we live in, I guess. And Sir Michael Marmot's work on this has been instrumental in mapping out some of the impact of social determinants of health, helping us understand that 80% of our health is the result of social determinants of health. And I was just talking to the panel just before we started as well. I was on nights last night, and I had a medical student with me, and we were just chatting that I explained about biopsychosocial model, and we talked about all those interesting, in my head, things. And then I said, we need to do a lumbar puncture. And they got more excited than ever about the lumbar puncture. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm truly looking forward to the day when medical students and ourselves, I guess, junior doctors, when we'll be as excited about, social determinants of health as we are about lumbar punctures in there. But this is where my obsession with the biopsychosocial model stems from. We seem to be good at the biological side of the model, but the psychosocial, not so much. So let me get into social prescribing a bit, and I'll cover some of the basics, but I also introduce someone special to you who will talk more about the developments within the national healthcare system in the UK around social prescribing. So as a short definition, social prescribing is a model whereby healthcare professionals have the chance, the opportunity to refer patients to a link or community worker to co-design a non-clinical social prescription, which will ultimately improve their health and well-being. One thing I want to note in here is that social prescriptions are not there to replace medicine, are not there to replace the biomedical model. They are there to complement the model when we truly cannot understand the needs of the patient as well. Is social prescribing a new concept? Well, I mean, the name is, the concept's not really. We talk about this a lot when we get asked about the evidence. If you strip down social prescribing and peel it layer by layer, like an onion, if you think about it, we can clearly see it is composed of several concepts that we do have plenty of evidence for, such as motivational interviewing, shared decision-making, biopsychosocial model, and so on. So this is how our social prescribing champion scheme was born, and we had support from NHS England and what we and the College of Medicine, Social Prescribing Network, and other pioneers. But what we really wanted to do was to recruit medical students from every single medical school in the UK, and we started with one in each medical school. There's now above more than 5,000 medical students across the UK who've got involved in teaching sessions, but we wanted them to drive this learning around the biopsychosocial model, around person-centered care, around the social determinants of health. And this was born from our desire to focus on prevention, on person-centered care, and to use it as a mechanism of getting at the core of the biopsychosocial model. So I'd like to introduce to you someone very special to the scheme who's truly been with us since the, 3-4 years ago, I think, was it, Bev, when we started the scheme. And as I say, I like to think of Bev as the mother of our NHS Social Prescribing Champion scheme, because she's always been there funding our conferences through NHS England every year, and has really supported us when nobody was there to help. So Bev is currently the Operations Director at the newly founded National Academy of Social Prescribing, and she is expanding the realm of social prescribing, and I'm really grateful to have her with us today. Over to you, Bev, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Bogdan. And I can remember really well that day when you bounded up to me at, I think it was a King's Fund conference, and said, well, I'm a medical student and I just happen to be able to connect to lots of medical schools around the country. Would it be okay if I kind of tried to get medical students interested in social prescribing? And I went, yeah, okay, that's cool. And we've kind of worked on how that might be. Bogdan, I never thought that at this point you would have that many people involved and really, really changing the way that medical schools work, changing the curriculum, changing the way that students engage. It is fantastic, and we are very grateful. It is the start, it is the end of the beginning, or the start of the next phase, because we've got lots more work to do together. So I'd nod furiously with everything that you've said, Bogdan, but I would add a couple more things, which is lots of doctors, senior doctors, worry about overprescribing, that we are, and in the opioid kind of crisis, there is huge health inequality, and COVID has shown us that health inequality really matters, and loneliness could be argued is the biggest killer. So any medical student, anybody involved in medical education needs to really think about what we've got ahead of us. Increasing unemployment, problems with housing, problems with food, problems with poverty, with obesity, people living longer but not necessarily living more healthy, multiple long-term conditions, and on top of that, huge mental health challenges. Okay, so that's the environment in which we're all working. I would argue that, yeah, of course, my daughter got rushed into hospital with a urine infection. If that's what's needed, get them drugs in as quickly as possible, get that medical emergency sorted. But if she had a long-term response, thankfully she didn't, but if she had a long-term response to that, she would need a different kind of support. Not one, I think I'm a social policy person. I've worked with communities all my life and I've studied social policy. And what I'd say is the welfare state's been really good at fixing things and doing to people. That was right post-war. We need a different kind of way of working. And absolutely everything that you've said, Bogdan, it's about what matters to the person. What's their motivation? What are the things that they really worried about, really care about? There's no point talking to people about being active and losing weight if they're really worried about being evicted and not having enough food to feed the kids or whatever. So we start where people are at, and we work with that, we build trust, and then we connect them to the right support. And what that does is that reduces pressure on clinicians, and that enables clinicians to do the clinical stuff that they're best trained for. So with all of that in mind, we set about, Bogdan and I and a few others, building a really strong coalition movement. Veronica's part of it. You're all part of it. We're all leaders in this movement. We set around about building a movement for social prescribing, where there is a systematic way of connecting people to community support and taking pressure off the NHS. So it's not just health that is involved in this. It's all local agencies, so social workers, police, fire service can all refer people to social prescribing link workers. And fantastically, through the support of lots of politicians across the political spectrum, of Theresa May and the cross-government loneliness strategy, of Simon Stevens and the NHS long-term plan, of Helen Stokes-Lampard, who was chair of the Royal College of GP. Too many people to mention. They're just a few. But what we did was we built support within the NHS long-term plan for a really significant investment over 5 years to introduce social prescribing link workers into these new primary care networks, into GP practices working together. There's enough funding over 5 years for 3 to 4 link workers in primary care networks. And those link workers, they don't just signpost, they don't just give people a leaflet and say, here's a group about, or here's a welfare advice service, there's the number, ring them. What they do is they build trusting relationships, they get alongside people, and they work out what's stopping people from connecting those support to that support. So, without COVID, they might actually physically take people to services and support. They might introduce them in a way that makes people feel comfortable and ensures that the leaflet just doesn't go in the bin, and that they follow up and they connect people in a way that works for them. When that happens, what we've seen through individual case studies, but also through numerical studies in local areas, is that people develop skills, they develop confidence, sometimes they get volunteering, sometimes they get jobs, they develop more active lifestyles, and often, significantly, they don't need accident and emergency, they don't need general practice, and they don't even need outpatients as much. It's hard to quantify that over the country because there's just lots of small local studies, but there is an encouragement that there is some impact on NHS pressure. Most importantly, it helps people to have more control over their lives, to build their lives, and to be part of something. It would be lovely if we were in a world where everybody could just connect to each other and there would be no barriers, but that's not the society that we live in. And I'm afraid COVID's probably going to make that even harder. So we need to connect people for well-being. We need link workers. And I have talked to quite a few GPs over the last few weeks and months who've said, do you know what, Bev? I think link workers might be changing the model of primary care. You know, if we've got teams of link workers, then what they can do, they can be much more a practice manager said to me, they can be much more proactive, our link workers. They can, when people are when we get those letters from the hospital, my people are diagnosed with diabetes or COPD or heart conditions or whatever, they can be proactive, they can contact them, they can create a care plan, they can connect people to community support so that we know, people stay healthier for longer. That's where we need to be. And we need the whole of government to, and this is my new job at the academy, this is not just about health, this is about access to justice, access to financial support, the nurturing of communities, funding for the arts, funding for community support that enables people to live their best lives and live connected lives. So that's massive. It's a huge ambition. We need everybody on this call to be part of that movement. And Bogdan and I and Veronica and others will be working on it for a while. Is that right, Bogdan?
Oh, I think it's just the beginning, isn't it, Bev? I think so. So thank you so much, Bev. That's been fabulous. And I think it's it's that enabling and co-design, co-partnership with patients together that's truly inspired me and made me want to become part of this. And the reason why I truly think we should really work together with our patients. And I've got countless examples. If we have time at the end, one of the frequent questions that we get is often, how do you truly embed personalized care within your daily conversations with patients? And I've got countless of examples, even in pediatrics, from my own calls, and I'd love to share some of those with you. But Bev, thank you so much for that. We are doing a lot of work with the National Academy of Social Prescribing, and we are definitely just at the beginning of the task, and we're about to expand the scheme massively. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're looking more at multidisciplinary teams and interdisciplinary learning, as well as expanding the scheme into the clinical dimension as well. And for those of you who are from different countries around the world, we'd love to hear from you, because we'd love to help you champion and pioneer this within your own regions. And I'm sure there is something like this back home as well. It's just maybe different terminology, but we want to make sure that we develop this further, and we hope you reach that as well. So thank you, Bev. That's fantastic. So now I want to move on to introduce to you Veronica Franklin, who is a dear friend, if I'd like to consider her like that, as well as very much a mentor of myself, who's inspired me throughout. And I remember first meeting Veronica, and I think one of my biggest questions for Veronica was how do we really extend academic learning into academic learning sites into communities, and how do we make sure that students have the chance to see the potential of the biopsychosocial model, personalized care, and social prescribing in action. And Veronica is the CEO and founder of Arts for Dementia, a wonderful organization supporting patients across the UK with sessions and workshops, be it drama or be it dance. The participants with early stage dementia have tremendous benefits, which Veronica will tell you more about. But from my point of view, we got a few of our students involved, and hopefully you'll get to hear from the students as well that the learning has been tremendous for them, and it's truly been bi-directional in nature. But I'll let Veronica present first, and then we'll move on to the students as well. Veronica, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And you've been you and Bev, you're such inspirations, and gosh, the world is a better place for you. It really is. And yes, we met at the King's Fund 2. I was so moved by you that I came charging up to you and said, would you like to be involved with our arts programs? Anyway, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to take part in this inspirational event. Bogdan motivates us all like no other. This year, 9 of your students, and I think quite a few of them are here tonight, from UCL, King's College, Queen Mary College, have joined Arts for Dementia's Social Prescribing dance and drama programs you've just mentioned, to help re-energize and inspire participants above early symptoms of dementia. Students' youthful spirits have inspired our participants, whose imaginative interactions will, I believe, have had an enduring effect, educational effect on their medical careers. Firstly, your students, having chosen to learn about the less studied early stages of dementia, shows a steadfast determination to medical colleges that you mean business. But also, because this isn't actually covered by the syllabus, the more devastating later stages, having perhaps the more intensive need for study. But people experiencing the onset of symptoms, perplexed, worried, fearful that they're going to be treated as pariahs by colleagues and friends, retain innate and imaginative thinking and, albeit challenged to express it, are desperate to preserve their identity. This sensitive stage represents a specific need worthy of study. Each year, over 200,000 people are expected to develop a dementia in the UK. There is no cure for this range of degenerative brain disorders, but an ever-increasing body of evidence that engaging with arts can help protect against cognitive decline. The charity Arts for Dementia was set up a decade ago to bridge the gap, to develop weekly workshops at arts venues through their learning and participation departments, to re-energize people to override early-stage dementia. Life-preserving as dementia strikes, these workshops, challenging but achievable, even on Zoom, nurture and help preserve identity, sense of purpose and commitment joyful life together in the community. People can still learn, create, innovate despite dementia. Education is the foundation and springboard of Arts for Dementia's work. Students joining Arts for Dementia programs receive a free early stage dementia awareness training, currently by Zoom, delivered by our Dementia Pathfinders trainer. They are then welcome to join our weekly programs to participate, observe, assist in evaluation, and to send a brief report at the end of the 8-week term, using this themselves to augment their dementia training. Interacting with our participants creatively on a weekly basis offers medical students deeper insight into the lived experience of the challenges people face, their existing skills, and how best to access them. Privately, we explain the dementia type each participant is experiencing, whether Alzheimer's, vascular, frontotemporal. However rare, there is always one with this variant, and the contrast is evident, particularly on Zoom. Our participants open up to the students, each of whom each of whom in their reports expresses surprise and growing understanding of their sensitivities and capabilities. I should explain our rationale. Since founding Arts for Dementia, I've been working towards achieving national direction to arts to counteract the shock of diagnosis. The wonder of social prescribing today is that surgery-based link workers can do better. They can offer patients, as Bev explained, hitherto unsupported in the run-up to diagnosis, the glorious uplift, opportunity to re-engage with weekly arts when symptoms strike. Peri-diagnosis. To embed this practice nationwide is my aim. Loss-focused assessment tests exacerbate anxieties, however sensitive, they still exacerbate private anxieties, and the loss of confidence brought about by cognitive impairment. Patients may not know the result for months, and when they do, the thought of years of deterioration, potential stigma triggering isolation as friends and colleagues drift away, drives them into solitude. So if when GPs are on the point of referring patients for assessment tests, they at the same time trigger arts prescriptions, by the time diagnosis comes, patients are working with others experiencing similar challenges towards a creative outcome. This will give positive, life-enhancing direction to life with dementia. Naturally, too, and less challenging for us, social prescribing to arts programs as post-diagnostic support is, of course, invaluable. Think of it, though, in the fearful run-up to diagnosis, involvement with a weekly arts group with a purpose shows people how much they can achieve despite dementia. This must become national practice. In our current drama program, one as yet undiagnosed participant who counts the days till the next session reassures me that he definitely has dementia. I think so that he can keep acting. Of course he can. And he was brilliant interacting with a medical student. I think this was Komal, crooning Elvis while she distracted him over their COVID scene. He was amazing, and so was she. They battled against each other in scenarios they devised about COVID. Afterwards, the student wrote, I was inspired by the participants' boisterous and sociable demeanour. Their creativity and imaginative ideas encouraged me to think outside the box. Different personalities were able to interact and collaborate together. It was exciting to see different perspectives and learn more about each other every week. Working with such a vibrant and enthusiastic group taught me a lot and enabled me to bridge the gap between medicine and the arts. So each student sends in a report. Another pointed out the participants talk of the courtesy and respect shown to them, not talked down to or at. This is where early stage dementia awareness training is especially valuable. The person knows that their views are valued. A key learning point for students and professionals alike is that to offer arts prescriptions as early as possible in the dementia journey provides a vital lifeline to keep people, as Bev said, living healthier in the community for years longer, much depending too on the character of the person and their partner. To understand this early in your medical careers will help transform the diagnostic experience. It really will. How glorious it is to read that your students are joining more such programs, mutual learning, generating mutual respect, and lives better lived, thanks to social prescribing.
Thank you so much, Veronica. That was absolutely brilliant, and we'll attach your paper as well for the students to read after and for the attendees as well. But this is why I'm a big advocate, and I truly want to integrate community places such as, and in organizations such as Arts for Dementia into the core learning of medical students across the UK. And I truly think medical schools should liaise and open more up to communities and to change that learning environment from the academic setting within the university to local communities. We know that students spend 5 to 6 years within a local community, so make them part of that community. Make them truly understand what matters to the patients around them. So thank you, Veronica, and we will definitely keep pushing for this to be integrated within the curriculum as well. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention is that, and there's some brilliant questions, by the way, and I love Kathleen's got some amazing questions in there, all very relevant, and we'll tackle some of them in a second as well. But I want to also talk a bit about why this is happening and where does the change need to occur. Now, my perspective of this has always been that we really need to go to the root of the cause. Now, the root of the cause is actually even before medical school. Have a think about that for a second. I've been on several interview panels and different things for medical school in the past, and one of the books that I did was on getting into medical school. Now, when you look at personal statements from students, you often find out that 90% of them in their work experience will 100% mention surgical skills, suturing, blood. And I've had this student saying that they've had the chance to drill a hole in someone's knee, and it was so exciting. However, none of them talk about the value of, social determinants of health, biopsychosocial model, and all those things. And so there's that perception that is being set really early as school. And so one of the aims, I suppose, would be to change that perception and understand that medicine is, again, much more than just biomedicine. And this is why I said that I wish students were as excited about, suturing and lumbar punctures as they were about social determinants of health as well. But so how did we kind of go back one step? Well, the students who joined Veronica are not actually medical students. They are neuroscience students. They are biosciences students at universities in London, so King's College, UCL, and Barts. And I'm going to give them a chance to tell you how their perception of medicine has changed. And these are undergraduate students who want to do graduate medicine. And I'm going to invite them one by one and give them 1 minute each just to talk to you about those things. I'm going to promote them to panelists, and let's see if this works. So Hamad, I'm going to go for you first. Let's see if he's going to rejoin the webinar as a panelist shortly. So we should have Hamad with us now. Hamad, can you hear me well?
Hi, yes, I can. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Hamad, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us how the placement with Arts for Dementia changed your perception of what medicine is really.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be very succinct. My main takeaway from the Arts for Dementia workshop, which Veronica so very generously opened up to our students, is that disease is more than a biological burden, and consequently doctors, allied health professionals, anyone with a duty of care, they have to do more than biological repair. And I saw how dementia is more than just a physical disease. I saw participants in the workshop living well with dementia as well. And it's not an ending. That's something that was really revelatory to me. And this is something completely contradictory to my prior neuroscientific understanding of dementia, which was only rooted in its biochemistry. And so, as Bogdan is saying, as a prospective medical student, it's completely revolutionized my outlook on care, how it should be prescribed, and how it should be delivered as well. So I'm very grateful for that enlightening experience, both to Veronica and Bogdan.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hamad. I'm going to invite another student now. Let me just see if I can get Andrea next as well. So I'm going to promote her to panelist as well. Okay, so Andrea should be with us as well. Let's see. Can you hear us, Andrea?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, so Andrea is at UCL. Andrea, I'll give you a few minutes as well just to talk about your experience with Arts for Dementia.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. So I think it has definitely changed my perception of medicine, because we are taught in this traditional way of viewing medicine as biology, physiology, but you never really integrated in what it really is. It is a social science, and as I'm going to quote the father of modern pathology, Rudolf Virchow, who said that medicine is indeed a social science. So we cannot really take away this social aspect of medicine. And being part of Arts for Dementia truly proved to me that any disease has so many dimensions, and it's really important to see each patient's personal experience of disease and to truly understand it.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Fantastic. I'm going to move on to Kate and Anya. Bear with me. Let me just promote them to panelists as well. And hopefully we got Kate and Anya as well. There we go. Let's see. Fabulous. Can you hear us well, Kate and Anya?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So lovely to see you both. I know you're from different universities, so why don't you introduce yourselves as well and tell us how this has made you perhaps better future doctors?
I'm from the University of Manchester. I'm doing the second year of the biomedical sciences and hoping to do the postgraduate medicine in the future.
Yeah, and my name is Anya, and I'm doing biomedical science too at the King's College London. Yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak and share our experience at Arts and Dementia.
Upon joining the online classes of Arts for Dementia, we were able to meet participants from a very broad range of studies and engage with patients using different forms of art, such as drama, and whether it be coming up with new body movements to complement a dance or recreating an acting performance. It was an honor to meet and help small groups of patients at a time. It helped to create an inclusive atmosphere and whereby everybody could share their story and enjoy the company of all ages and backgrounds. And based on the first impressions, both of us realized how important fun and relaxing activities are, especially at the early stages of dementia. It directly helps the individuals to get their minds off the fact that they have this umbrella medical condition, as well as to get rid of any negative mindset. And the workshops, I feel like they truly allow them to feel healthy and active. It stood out at the end of each session how pleased the participants were to engage in such creative disciplines.
Yes, definitely. I completely agree. We were super pleased to see everyone participating and creating this community and trying their best to recreate new movements and continue and contribute to dancing classes. In some cases, even patients were given homework to think of new movements, and then we would combine them to create the whole new dance. All movements were combined to whole dance, as I said, and it was inspiring to see the case of one of the participants who shared that dancing was her hobby when she was younger. And we did feel extremely grateful to be part of a group who makes it possible to still keep up with her hobby to this day. It's just an hour a week of contribution that carries such an essential long-term impact on all of the participants. It's incredible to observe how creative activities give people a sense of purpose and belonging. We've learned a lot through Arts and Dementia, and we're really pleased with the whole experience. And thank you, Veronica, again, for giving us such an opportunity to experience that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. It's fantastic. And I can only say that I look forward to the day when you'll both be qualified doctors and you'll be applying all those principles. And I look forward to working with doctors like this in the future as well. Now, I've got one more student to introduce to you, but it's a very special medical student. So let me just have a look for them. I'm going to change role to attendees as well. 1 second. With me, I'm just gonna get Daisy as well. Fantastic. So I should have Daisy in a second with us as well. Now, Daisy is a very special medical student, and the reason I say this is because she has truly led the Social Prescribing Champion Scheme this year and has done a fantastic job to recruit hundreds of student champions across the UK from all medical schools. But Daisy's also experienced social prescribing from the perspective of a medical student, as I did as well. So I just wanted to hear some thoughts from her, but I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank the thousands of students who got involved into the movement. This would have not been possible without all your efforts. So Daisy, thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for inspiring the future generation as well. What are your thoughts on this? How did you find that as a medical student?
Oh, thanks so much, Bogdan. Actually, I was just reflecting on what everyone else has said, and in the past week, I've started working back in the hospital as a healthcare assistant part-time. And I was working on the sort of elder care dementia ward. And on that kind of ward, you see a lot of patients who come in and who stay in hospital for a lot of social reasons and who are medically fit to go home. And it just really sort of brings home how whether if you were able to socially prescribe them a group or something, you just hope that that would reduce their incidence of falls or of coming back into hospital with those kind of recurrent falls or episodes. And actually, we're really pleased to announce that in the last week, our junior doctor branch of the scheme that's just started has been able to introduce social prescribing onto their discharge forms in Milton Keynes. So now junior doctors are able to refer their patients to social prescribing schemes. It's starting off in Milton Keynes, but we're really hoping it's going to sort of spread around and take hold across the country.
That's such fantastic work, Daisy. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing those things. And I think for those of you who are from all over the world, and for those of you who are not from the UK, I'm particularly interested because there is something that I promise myself will not settle before I do. And there is something that I'd love to do together with you all. And if you'd like to join something that we were planning for ages, and again, I'll not settle until this happens, it's all about the perceptions, I think. And it's all about our deeply rooted perception of what medicine is and also our interactions with patients. We need to go beyond that. And if you'd like to get involved in something like this, we truly want to change that perception with a movement whereby medical students across the world would act as champions, not for social prescribing. Let's take it one step back, because the naming of it may not resonate with many people. However, the concepts and the model behind is something that should come natural, regardless of the country that you're in as well. What I'm talking about is simply biopsychosocial model, simply not telling patients what to do and sitting there straight with white coats and looking down on them, simply asking them to contribute to the conversation and being part and meeting us halfway when able to do so. It's because otherwise we would be unable to deliver the high quality care that we all hope for. So do stay in touch, join the conversation with us via Twitter as well. Thank you so much for joining as well. There's some brilliant questions, so hopefully we'll take a few of those in there. But I just wanted to extend my thanks to all the attendees and also the panel members for speaking so eloquently about the subject.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Bogdan. Now, I was going to facilitate some questions for you, and I started writing down questions, and I filled a whole page. And so I'm not quite sure now whether to go from the top. I think what we might do is cherry pick a couple of questions, and then if it's all right with you, we can go from a bit more systematically in writing after the event. But I think one question early on was about your reflections on getting an education in innovation embedded and disseminated across medical schools. So I don't know if you want to answer that or field it to one of your colleagues, but how did you get this movement started and continuing?
Yes, so that I looked at that question as well, and I was about to say that's a brilliant question, and I think something that I would love to help others around develop as well. It was really it really started with a bit of enthusiasm and frustration with the current system. We tried looking up and we tried pointing fingers, and we tried blaming others for the things that we don't get. But then we had great mentors who proved to us and taught us that if we want to change something, we can also start it from the ground. And so what we did was that instead of looking at others, we decided to start a bit of an informal teaching movement. And so we created a bit of a vision, and we asked other medical students whether they thought so too, and whether they thought the same. And truth is, all medical students deeply, or, you know, they do know this, and you have a wide spectrum, and Professor Helen Langford-Stokes shares this in a brilliant way, but you have a wide spectrum, and you have some that are very convinced about the subject at one end of the spectrum. You have ones that are very convinced against the subject, and then you have some in the middle who are easily convinced about the subject. And so what we did, we found those champions, those medical students who were very much with the subject, and they were eager to the vanguards, the real examples who would like to pioneer this movement forward. And we kind of worked with them, and we worked together to tip over the ones in the middle, and then so the others who were sticking their heads into the ground eventually followed as well along the way. But I think at the core of this is that psychological theory around we're all in this together. And it's true. As medical students, we all are in this boat together, and we really have to do what's right for our future. And so if some teaching is not added into our curriculum, yes, we can point fingers, but at the same time, we can also look for champions and start demanding that teaching ourselves. And I guess that's the same with assessment. There was another question about assessment, which was brilliant in there. And I truly think it needs to be formalized. Those concepts need to be added in the assessment area. Otherwise, they won't be taken seriously. Students will shut down immediately when they hear these concepts. So we really need to change those cultures around. But anyone had any thoughts about introducing this into medical school? I've just spoken from my experience. Bev, yeah.
Yeah, I would look for policy opportunities. So when I was trying to land social prescribing across NHS England, there was the 5-year forward view that said health's a social movement. And I thought, that's interesting. They know that they want something. They don't quite know what they want, but here are a load of people who can help them think it through. The cross-government loneliness initiative, as soon as I heard that was happening, I was like, got to get in there, got to influence them. And then the NHS long-term plan. So it's like, look at what's happening health policy and social policy wise, and think about wherever you are in the world, whatever your country, and think about, right, what opportunities are there to have that conversation. Find your biggest influencers, your biggest movers and shakers, get whoever you talk to and get them to talk to people.
Thank you, Bev. That's super helpful.
There's another line of questioning which is linked but slightly different, Bogdan, which is about the role of occupational therapists, and really interesting some contributions to the chat talking about how occupational therapists are trained, including whether problem-based learning is a useful approach in terms of bringing some of the these ideas, and also put that OTs are, shock horror, also trained in mental health. So whether they've got a whole range of kind of skills and ideas embedded within their profession that would be useful to spread.
Absolutely, and I can see Bev nodding as well, and it's because we are just about to start some work on this, and so it's a great privilege, because we know it's all about multidisciplinary learning. We know it's about interdisciplinary learning, and I look forward to the day that, again, medical students will work alongside OTs, PTs, nurses, pharmacists as well. There's so much we can learn from each other, and there's that, the hierarchy and the tribalism, and, the us versus them, which I look forward to the day when we'll stop saying, well, it's the patient's under you, or, oh, the patient was seen by this team. The patient is under all of us. We care for the patient together, and we have a shared responsibility. And so having the opportunity to get involved in interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary learning early on in medical school, from my perspective, is crucial, because it removes those barriers of us versus them. And it also shows that we pretty much do similar things, and it would harness that collaboration. And we are very much looking forward to expanding the scheme to include multidisciplinary professions. More on that shortly, but if there's any leaders out there that would love to get involved from that perspective, do get in touch with us, because we have a big surprise for the scheme expanding in that direction as well, with the National Academy of Social Prescribing as well. So that's a brilliant question.
There's lots going on in the chat that you probably can't look at yet, Bogdan, because you're busy, but you'll enjoy looking back at it, I think. There's another good question. It was, could students risk moral injury learning on one system but seeing another practice? So I guess knowing how good things could be or can be, but not necessarily operating in that environment day to day.
Yeah, I really love that question, and that was also on my list. So I took notes, and those are questions that I think we should open threads on Twitter about, actually, and hear what everybody thinks about, because it's such a valid question. And in fact, when I went to Harvard, I'm going to be honest, I went to into Mass General Hospital, and I was expecting to see the best hospital in the world, because that's the perception, and you think you're going to have the highest quality. And I was expecting to see patients collaborating with doctors, and social determinants of health shining through. And in fact, I was surprised, because I walked in and I still saw white-coated doctors and giving orders to patients and telling them what to do. And I heard remarks as, no, I'm the attending, I'm telling you. And I heard remarks like this, I'm telling you, which still resonated with me. And I'm thinking, if I saw that there as well, we know that this is a problem across the world. And I think how do we avoid those things is to make the most of the situation or the circumstances that we have in front of us. When I started studying in the UK, you can imagine the privilege. I'm originally from Romania. You don't want to know how my English was before this. I failed my English exams before. And so when I was in Romania, I could only hope that I would go somewhere where the medical education system would be better. And so I arrived in the UK, but I realized that actually, no matter how developed a country would be, there's still that lag between medical education, clinical practice, and things can always be better. And so I think making the most of the situation, and if there's not something already developed, finding champions and medical students who would plow through enthusiastically and share the views with others and be joined by other medical students is the way to move forward in that perspective. And we'll be there to help, and we'll be there to help them not be disappointed by what's happening locally. And I think it's all about starting broad. I would start as broad as possible. So don't necessarily think social prescribing because of the two words that we mentioned. You can see the model in the UK. You're more than welcome to call it social prescribing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that the deeper layer, the deeper theme here is not those two words. The deeper layer is, if you put it simply, what Bevla's saying, and James from NHS England, it's all about sitting down and finding out what truly matters to the patient and going beyond what's the matter with the patient. If we manage to change that question, and if we manage to change white-coated doctors looking down on patients, telling them what to do, and then rather collaborate and co-design those things with them, that's enough. And that would be a first step forward. And if anyone would like to be involved in that, would love to support that.
Well, I'm sad to say it, but our time is probably up. I can't believe that hour's raced by. I mean, I hope I speak for everyone. I found that completely inspirational, and I think we need to be thinking about a possible follow-up webinar to build. There's so many directions we could take this in. So just to say thanks to all those who've participated in the session today. I can see that the New Leaders Award is going to be very competitive in future, because there's so many great leaders coming through. So please do put yourself forward for some of these awards, because it really does give people a platform to sort of share their ideas. As we've said, a video of the session is going to be available on the website in a few days. Apologies for the background, by the way. That's my cat with the little bell on her collar. Anyway, but please do sign up for future bite-sized sessions. Our next session is going to be this Friday, 16th of October at 4:30. And this is another award winner. This is the 2019 Education Research Committee Best Research Paper winner, which is Dr. Hannah Gillespie. And I know this one's going to be an absolute treat because I actually saw her present this paper at the conference. And her research is called How Can Tomorrow's Doctors Be More Caring? A Phenomenological Investigation. So absolutely aligned to the topic here too. So for more details about that, please visit the ASME events page. And thank you so much for a great webinar and for being here today. Thank you, Bogdan. I don't know if you want a last word, Bogdan.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Honestly, from attendees, you've been so proactive and the questions are brilliant. Please follow the conversations on Twitter. I'll put my handle up there and share it with us. Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to keep pursuing those conversations further as well. Do have a look at ASME. They do amazing events in medical education. We hope to collaborate in the future as well. But thank you, Bev. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you all the champions and the students who've joined us today for showing us how the future of medicine is looking like as well. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining.
Thank you very much.